So over the last 25 years, I've probably had five different coaches in my life who have helped me in various degrees, primarily across my professional career. And so last year, I was going through a transition at work, and I was feeling some stress, some pressure, and I just knew I needed a coach. So this last coach that I use has been great, and we've stayed close friends, Jon Hord. And, traditionally when you go through your first coaching session, you're going to ask questions about, what do you want to talk about? And, particularly for me, I talked a lot about my professional career, and he asked me, how do you want to show up as an executive? How do you want to show up when you get to work? Meaning, how do you want people to feel about you? What do you want them to think about you? So I go through all these things, and he says, okay, well, what are you doing to evoke those feelings? So, so that you have alignment with the way you want people to view you and the things you're actually doing to create those views. So I'm going through it, and I'm like nailing, listen, all these things off. How I show up, how I communicate, how I care for others, my empathy, love for people, quick decision making, all this different stuff. And then he says, so tell me about at home. How do you want to show up at home? What do you want your wife, your kids to think and feel about you when you come home? And so I told him, I want to be viewed as a provider, loving, empathetic, attentive, all these things, right? And then he said, so what do you do when you get home or when you're at home intentionally that will create those feelings or emotions? And dude, I couldn't think of hardly anything. And we got to the end of that conversation, and he says, okay, so what would you like to work on today? And it was obvious. I'd spent all this time focused on my career, and I wasn't being intentional, applying the same methodologies to my home life. So we worked on that, and he asked me some tough, challenging questions, and I realized that I wasn't showing up at home the way I wanted to. And I'll give you an example just recently. So this was coaching that we did about a year ago. And, he had some great accountability tools to help me anchor these behaviors. So just last week, I'm not having the best week, I can promise you. In fact, one of the days I chipped my tooth, my back was bothering me. I had to go to the chiropractor. That was right after I spent like an hour and a half at the dentist getting my tooth drilled on to get this filling put in. I had to push everything that I had to do at work early in the day to try to get things done so that I could get to the dentist, then go to the chiropractor and all that. And I get a text message from my wife. And she says, hey, Brody's got this assessment appointment at APG at 5:30. And she says, do you want to go together and take him? Do you want to stay home and I'll take him, or do you want to take him? And in that moment, I remembered how I want my wife to think or feel about me. And I want her to feel like I love spending time with her. I want her to feel like she matters, that she's important. Now, normally what I would do before talking with Jon, what I would do is I would just say, hey, you take Brody and I'm going to go home. I've had a long day. I just want some time to myself. And that's the life I lived for years and years. But this time I text her back and I said, why don't we take them together? We can hang out and then we'll grab dinner afterwards. And she texts back just one word, perfect. And that is what coaching did for me. And if you're a professional dad out there, if you have been spending the last several years excelling in your career, trying to be a provider, and your home life is really more about you trying to find ways to unwind and de-stress and get away from the emotions and the grind that you're feeling at work, I would highly encourage anyone who's listening to this to go online or make that phone call. You got to call Jon Hord. You got to get in this program. This program he's put together for professional dads. Working with Jon, it transformed my life. It changed me. And I can tell you now that when I still leave work with the same frustrations, I still leave work with the same emotions. We created a thing that I do on my way home from work. I stop at McDonald's and I would get an ice cream cone, and my ice cream cone on my way home from work is like my conscious transition of acknowledging how I'm feeling. How am I feeling right now? Am I angry? Am I stressed? All those things. Why am I feeling pressure? And by the time I finished my ice cream cone and I got home, I was making a conscious decision in my mind that I'm going to show up differently for my family because I want them to see me differently. I made a joke with my wife. It's been a couple of years ago. I said, the only two people who are excited when I come home are our two dogs. And when I told her that, I was like playing this victim, right? Like, poor me. When in actuality, I was the one who created that environment. It was because of the way I treated them when I was at home that I wasn't getting the attention when I got there. And going through this program, coaching with Jon, has been such a shift for me. And it has created catabolic energy where I am able to remove the frustration, the stress of work, and I'm able to get into joy and peace and fun. I don't want to just go home and be by myself or lay down or take a nap or get on my phone. I want to engage with my family. And that has become like a sanctuary for me that I never even knew existed, and has created such a balance in my life that my professional life has also accelerated, has also gotten better. I've also gotten more efficient at work because of the balance that I've created. So I just want to encourage anyone, if you don't have a coach, every coach needs a coach. Every person needs a coach, in my opinion. And if you have the opportunity to get into Jon's program, you owe it to yourself to give it a shot.